Okay, I'll have to look at it afterwards then, please. Okay, let me at least start and let me get it going. Okay. Okay, so everybody clear with statements on line 12 and 14, and I would appreciate if you could listen to me and not talk amongst yourself while I talk. It would be good, right? And if you really are dying to talk, volume's low, absolutely low. Okay, I shouldn't be able to hear it, and not the other students too. So everybody clear about statement 12 and 14? The create database command will not happen every time you run this script. The create database command creates a database, but that's not what happens in real life. We don't create it every day we come. We don't run our scripts and create the whole database and all the tables and populate them. Once a database is created and there are tables created in there, they're kind of permanent. You could add more to it, you could change it, but you don't delete the whole thing and then start the whole thing every day. That's not how it is. Of course not, right? Okay, so we are fine with 12 and 14. You will always have to use your database before you can work with it. So the use statement is compulsory. The create statement may or may not be compulsory. If you already have this database on your local machines or on the server, then you don't create it every time. Definitely on DreamHost, you cannot create a database at all. You only have one default database. Shane.
So the way this is set up kind of makes the source scroll nice and kind of tedious to work with. Would you like use one script or usually use a bunch of scripts to use one database? Or would you still need to create a database?
Oh, we will do it. I'll show you how you can run the same script every day by doing what to your script. I'll show you.
I don't want to have to highlight everything all the time.
Yeah, no, we'll run on the same script, but I'll show you what to do. Okay.
So it's okay to use the local host.
Yes, we will. I am using the local host, but people who want to use DreamHost can do that. Okay. Okay. So our next job is to create the table, right? So how do we create tables in SQL using SQL language, the structured query language? So mostly, you can make a educated guess. So you use the create table command. Again, I am keeping all my commands in uppercase. I like to. It just stands out. It makes it easier to read. Again, it's up to you. If you would like to put your commands, your SQL commands in uppercase, you can. If you want to put them in lowercase, you can. But again, be consistent. This is not rough work you're doing. You're writing a code, and code has to be neat because I need to read it. Okay. So whatever works for you. I'll stick to the caps just because I like doing it. Okay, now table name. Same rules. You can use digits, letters, underscore, camel case or whatever. If you notice, I'm going with the dashes. You can, if you like, have TBL in front of it for table names. That's how you recognize them. You may or may not put the underscore. That's not so necessary with tables and DB. But if that's what is, since I put it in my DB, I'll put it here also. So I created a database called college, and you always use names that make sense. Then you're creating a table inside it. From last week, do you remember what I did? I asked each of you for some pieces of information, 5 pieces each. If I wanted to save all this information in a table, what do you think I could call the table? What would be a good name for the table?
Student info.
Student info would be a good name. Student would be a good name. Students would be a good name. Yes.
Student data.
Student data would be a good name. Right? So whatever makes sense. Whatever you like. So I'll go with students. So you can choose whatever name you like, call the table whatever you like, but the name should be meaningful. Please don't call it XYZ123. Doesn't make sense, right? So names are important. They kind of tell you what you're going to save in it. So you can call it student info if you like, you can call it student, whatever makes sense to you. Okay. Now, so the create table command says I'm going to create this table, and this table will now have fields. So if you can kind of visualize in your mind that a table is like a 2-dimensional array, right? So your table will have data about student 1, student 3, and 4, and so on. So each table will represent one student's information. And these are called rows or tuples in SQL language, whatever makes sense. And then for each student, if you remember, we had a name. Then I think I had a birthplace. You had job desired, you had sites, and there was something else. There were 5 fields, I think, right? There were 5 fields. So there was a name. I think I had asked for a date of birth, and then I had said email. Email was missing, right? So there were 5 pieces of information for each. So the student is called an entity. This table name, we say we are keeping information about an entity. These are called columns or attributes, right? And these are called tuples or rows. So that's the terminology of a table. So when you, sorry? Tuples, T-U-P-L-E-S, tuple, right? So you can say tuples, they're called rows or tuples. People now call it more rows than tuples. But if you find this name, that's what it means, right? Similarly, these are called attributes or columns. We'll stick to rows and columns just because it's simple to understand. But if you come across these other terms, you should be aware of it.
Would it be hard for any of us to write down that diagram for future reference?
Draw the diagram. It's up to you. Whatever you like, whatever makes life easy for you, you're most welcome to do what you like. Right? Whatever helps. Okay. Right? So that's how you start with the create table command. So when I create a table, I'll have to define the attributes of my table. And this is very important. What names will you give to your attributes? What types will you give to your attributes? And the types also the size of attributes. So how do I know? So you'll have to find out from MySQL what are the types that are available. If you were working on Oracle, what are the types that are available? They're almost common. They could be maybe, here and there a little bit, something available in one called something else in the different, but it's kind of, again, consistent. So the best way to find what are the different types that are available in MySQL is just Google it. Remember, I showed it to you last week. You can say data types, or you know what? Pick up the latest reference manual and it's very neat. Right, so you will have a data type overview. If you're only interested in numeric types, go to the numeric types, date and time, strings, and so on and so forth. But I have to stress, and I can't stress it enough, it is very important, and as in any other language, it is very important in creating databases when you create them, that you choose the right type. What do I need? Do I need a number? Do I need an int? Do I need a float? Do I need a character? Do I need a varchar? What do I need? And then also the size. Okay, so it is very important that you pay attention to the type in your code. So you just can't be careless. And why is it important? Because remember, every record is taking up space. And if you're going to waste space, you only need 20 and you're asking for 50. Every record is going to waste 30 characters. Records, each one wasting 30 records. Storage is cheap. There is, of course, it's much cheaper than what it was a few years back, but that doesn't mean that you won't think like a programmer. So Jared or Rich, whoever in the other course, will not stress about types. They will assume that you know the right type to choose. And what will help you? This will help you. So if I want to use a floating point number, what should I do? If I want to use an integer, what should I do? So all you have to do is, for example, if I'm talking about numeric types, you'll go to your types and notice how it has integer types. And here is a list of the integer types, right? I'm picking up integers because they're easy to kind of understand. Notice what is available in MySQL. You have a tiny int, you have a small int, you have a medium int, you have an int, and then you have a big int. Comes next is storage, how many bytes it takes, right? So it says it takes 1 byte, 2 bytes, 3 bytes, 4, and 8 bytes. And then comes the range. What can you store in it? So if I was going to store age of a person, what type would you think is the best suitable for it? What type would be best suitable for age of a person? Tiny int would be good, right? Now with tiny int, you see a range of -128 to 127. I don't need negative numbers. Age can never be negative. I can go with unsigned tiny int, right? And in the unsigned tiny int, my range increases. It goes from 0 to 255, and I think that's good enough. Like, that's good enough. So am I going to look for types? Yes, I am. I'm going to see whether you thought about it or not. Okay. So the formula, though you don't have to memorize it, but I'm sure you did it in your math course, if you remember math course from last year. seems like I'll have to get my own chalks also for this class. Let me see if I have. Okay, I have a small piece, right? So if I have n bits for an integer, for example, let's take tiny int. Tiny int takes 1 byte. 1 byte means how many bits? 8 bits. So the range that it can save, if you're saving signed numbers, the range it can save is 2 to the power of n minus 1 to 2 to the power of n minus 1 minus 1. That's your range. Right? You don't have to memorize anything, but you can always go back and look. If I want to save prices of cars, then of course I would pick up an int or a big int, depending upon what make and model you're talking about, right? And if it is an unsigned number, it goes from 0 to 2 to the power of n minus 1. That's the range. That's how they've calculated that range. It's a normal formula. Why do I take n minus 1 here? Because out of the n bits, 1 goes for this sign. So I'm left with n minus 1. Why do I take n here? Because it's an unsigned number. I don't have to save the sign. So the whole n bits is at my disposal, right? So this is how they're getting this range, minus 128 to 127, 0 to 255. That's all they have done. So for a tiny int, number of bits is equal to 8. Substitute 7 here and substitute 8 here. And that's the range you will get. This range will be minus 128 to 127. And this range will be 0 to 255. That's how they got it. Right? It's just a simple formula. It's not that easy with floating point numbers, but here it's as easy as this. So you will go and look at the numeric types, see which one works the best for you, and that's the type you will give to your variable. Okay. Similarly, bringing your attention a little to floating point numbers. So there are fixed point and then you see floating point. Notice it says exact value and it says approximate value. Give it a reading afterwards, but I'll give you a kind of a rough idea. If you're going to work and you want exact precision, you're very particular about precision, like monetary values, where it is important, go with this type, decimal, right? It takes more size, but for precision, that's what it is, right? You have to be you have to be precise in money. If you're kind of dealing with something simple as, I don't know, height of students, maybe something like in centimeters, you're using a decimal number, you can go with the other one, which is float, right? So how do I decide which one I choose? You'll have to see which one is suitable. So one says exact value. The exact value are 2, decimal or numeric, both work for it. Decimal is more common in MySQL. We use decimal more than we use numeric, but both are okay. I think numeric was kind of copied from some other relational database to keep it consistent. If you want to use approximate value, you go with the other one, the float and the double. And decimal numbers are written with 2 parts. You have the precision and you have the scale. So 5,2 says give me space in which I can save 5 digits, right? So that's what 5 means. And 2 of them will be after the decimal. So how many before the decimal? 3 before the decimal. So if I declare something like salary with this, the person can earn a maximum of 999.99 cents. That's it. I can't put a value bigger than that in this salary. If you have to go bigger, go with 6,2, right? But see the comma 2. The comma 2 is important in salary because you never go comma 1 or comma 3s in money. You don't do that, right? Money, or the cents values are always a part of 100, and it's always 2 places after decimal. So again, when you're looking at something, don't say 3,1. Doesn't make sense. Okay, so be careful about floating real values. So again, it says exact value here. You have other 2. You have the other 2 also, and I think they're called float and double. Yeah, they're there, float and double. Right. So these are the other types that are available for you to use. You could be using float and double, like where it's not very important for precision, like exact precision. The bigger the size, you can save more data in it, right? So the more data, the more precise it becomes. So the float and the double, I think, are smaller in size. Somewhere it will tell you how many bytes it takes. There it is. A precision from 0 to 23 results in a 4-bit storage, and a precision from results in an 8-bit double. So even in precision, if you're okay with a 4-byte, float is 4 bytes and double is 8 bytes. Right? So again, depending upon the range, the value that you want to save, go with one of these. Right? So it is very important that you choose the right type. Very important. So we talked about these types, I think, last week when I showed you the second. Did I go through the types available in MySQL with your section? The second page of what's available on Blackboard, or this is all you did? No, I think we worked after filling up data, right?
We did that on 2 paper, we did the sheets of paper.
Yes.
And the option to download the example you did, the contact sample card.
Yeah, and after that, did we talk about the different types available in MySQL?
I don't recall, but I do
Anybody?
remember me telling you that I started creating the columns. for the
I can't
tables
remember,
and go and
guys.
run it.
Anybody who can help me? Your memory is poor than me. My memory is only poor because I'm teaching 2 sections and I can't remember what I did with the other one. That's the only
They
thing.
use the new schedule, so I'm sort of in the same boat.
So let's see. As soon as you see it, maybe you'll be able to tell me, oh, we talked about it. Week 2 learning. This familiar? Is this familiar?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we did talk about different types, right? So we did talk about text and so on and numbers, and there are dates and times available. So all this information for MySQL data type is available here.
Yes, plus I remember showing a page from the textbook right here.
Right? So see that you kind of familiarize yourself with this. So anytime you are kind of confused, what do I need? I would highly recommend come back here, read a little about it and say, oh, this is a better type for me. So definitely, if I don't give you the data types, I'm going to see the data types that you would choose. And if you want to go beyond what's available here and you have some background, or you can think of something in, say, Java or another programming language you've done, like enumerated data type, look it up, you'll get something. Okay, so the onus lies on you. What data types do I choose, and what is the size of what I choose? For example, here in decimal, you can say whether I want to go 6,2, 8,2, 10,2. You decide what you want. Okay, so that's important for you. So a little padding is okay. A couple here and there is okay. Instead of 4,2, 5,2 is fine, but 20,2 doesn't make sense. So I'm going to lay stress on the types. Okay, having said that, let's come back and see how do we create our table. So when you create your table, you have to give the table a name, and then you give your fields inside the create table command. Right? So you've seen this with Jared too. I would like you to indent your code a little, just because it's easy to read them. Okay, so now when you create a table, you will give your fields. Field names again should be unique. Definitely, you can't have duplicate field names. You can't have duplicate table names. They should be unique, and each must have a meaning. And again, you can follow whatever convention you're following. So if I want to go with student name, for example, that was my first field I asked of you. What do you think is the right type for this name? What are we looking at? Numeric or non-numeric? Non-numeric. So text data. Right now, text data comes in 2 flavors, the character and the varchar. Okay, so we have the char and we have the varchar or char or varchar, whatever you would like to call it. The difference is this. A character field gives you exact storage. Every record will have the same storage. So if I say my student name is just for the heck of it, I say each student name is around character 40. It's a full name. 50 will also do. Right? Then I'm saying in every record, every student will be given exactly 40 bytes. It's character. So every character takes 1 byte. Irrespective of you use it or you don't use it. You can go beyond, but you can go less. So if you're only using Anju, you're basically wasting 36 of them. That's what I mean. On the other hand, a better type that is available is the varchar. The varchar in SQL says anything between 0 to 40. So now what happens is if you require 4 bytes, you'll be given 4 bytes. That particular record will take 4 bytes. If a record has a bigger name, it will take as many bytes as required. So what are you doing? Saving space, right? So definitely varchar is better than char in this situation, right? Yes.
So what would be better within the brackets for the varchar, 50 or 40?
I've given what I think is okay. You can do whatever you think is okay. I've already put in a 40 there, right? So you can choose. 40 and 50 is not a big difference. 40 and 500 is a big difference, right? So if I say 40 and you go 50, it's not as if heavens are going to fall. We're okay. We're kind of thinking the same way. But that's enough for a name, I think. 10 would be too small, right? 10 would be too small. So don't go too small or don't go too big. So try to stay in the range where, and we all know what names are. Like we are kind of, we have this information. The second field was birthplace, right? So again, you can call it one field if you like, or you can say birth underscore place, or if you can read it as once, whatever you like. If you're following one convention, I'm following the dash convention, and notice when I'm giving in, I'm also doing some indentation. Makes it easy to read, right? Again, birthplace is again a varchar, right? So fortunately or unfortunately, all our fields are kind of, there's nothing numeric in what I collected. I could add age to it to show you, but that's what it is. Okay, so varchar, again, birthplace, 40ish is enough. As I said, we can kind of make an educated guess, but we are calling it an educated guess. It's just not guesswork, it's educated guess. The third field was email. It's again a varchar field. I don't know, 30 should be good. Kind of. So you can kind of make your own choices. Notice how I'm separating each field with a comma. You can put them in one line, really doesn't matter, as it doesn't matter to SQL. Why am I putting it in different lines? For readability. And the separation by comma is required. Okay, and I'm nothing stops you, because the semicolon is your terminator. This is where your statement terminates. Doesn't matter whether you're taking one line or 10 lines. And your comma is your separator. The last, no, there are two more. The next field was job desired. You know what, I should maybe try to keep it same in both sections at least. And again, you can vary. Like I'm just going 40-40, you could go job desired 50. Some people gave me more than one jobs, though I said job desired. So pay attention what kind of information I'm keeping. And then favorite sites. You can write the whole name if you like. I mean, don't be lazy. You can always, it helps you. It's an editor. Or if you want to go short, sure. Fav can do. And favorite sites, if you remember, we had sites. And I had answers ranging from 20 characters to sometimes 80 characters. People wrote 7, 8, 7 websites also. So you can think here, of course, 40 will not be very, very good figure. We can go 100. We can go 200. Again, what you are thinking. Though this is not the best design, you will never keep duplicate data in a field. When I say duplicate, the same kind of data. You'll always, there's a better way of doing it. But right now, since we've said it's favorite sites, and we've said we'll put everything together and it will be a varchar, you can go 100, 150, 200. Yes.
So using the number like 250 would be okay. Like
Sorry?
250. Like 250 for within the brackets.
For sites, favorite sites, yeah, it's okay.
Because as you might recall, some people kind of more than 5%.
Right?
And you can also do the days. So if you want, you could use between the O and R if you want.
Okay. Whatever you like. Okay. So names, as long as they're okay, they're spelled okay. It's not a big thing of Canadian or of American. The favorite can have whatever you want. If you want 250, it's fine too. Right? So 150, 200, 250, they're all okay. But as I said, this is not the best of design. You will never have a field in which you put different pieces of data together. When we come to designing, we'll talk about it. So usually you won't have this. Some users don't think intelligently at all when they're creating data tables. That's not how you should think at all. In the long run, it just doesn't work. So think intelligently. Your designer will always say the recommended space. As a programmer, you think what would be the recommended space. So the designer will say something, oh, the name is kind of, this is the longest name they want to say. But this is their customer names are kind of 80 characters. So thinking about that, you will make it a varchar of 80, right? So that's how you will think. I made all of these blobs, big, large binary data, but that's not the right type, right? It will work. There's nothing wrong in it, but that's not the right type. So I am stressing on right types. So in ints, look at it, whether signed or unsigned. In numeric, in floating point numbers, do you need a float? Do you need a double? Do you need a decimal? Do you need a numeric? Right? With Boolean fields, yes or no, again, go with bits if you like, or go with character 1. You can even, there is a bit field also in MySQL. You can even ask for 1 bit, 2 bits, 4 bits, 10 bits. That's getting too much, but it's available. Okay? So think, You have to think intelligently when you do it. So I've defined my table. My table is ready. This is my definition. It just tells you what are the fields in the table. I haven't inserted any data. There is nothing, right? But now, so are you okay with types? Do you understand all the types that are available here? Right? They're all good. Now let's kind of, before I do anything, I would like to run my script and see. Does my, yes.
Some people often write the words in capitals, not small, after the #9 in the key field.
Sorry, come again.
Basically, after something like the paper underscore size bar chart 250, you write capitals like not null.
We'll talk about that. Let me do it, right? I haven't reached there yet. When I come to that, then we'll talk about it. We haven't talked about it. We'll go slowly, right? I'm trying to do stuff. You can ask relevant questions for that stuff. We haven't yet finished, right? So now let's run that script. So when I run this script, I should have a database called DB college created on my local machine, wherever is my default. And in there, I should have a table by that name. Okay, so run your script. To run your script, of course, you can save this. And to run your script, you see this small kind of a, icon here, run it, execute it. And what you will notice in the window at the bottom is you'll get green check marks. And if it is green check marks, means everything was done. Try to read them. It says create database, 1 row was affected. Use it. I mean, 0 rows affected means you didn't retrieve any data. And then it says create this table and it says 0 rows affected. So it's basically saying were any rows affected? That is, did you read anything? Kind of. That's when it says rows affected. Looks fine. You'll say, oh, how do I know if it got created? If you kind of refresh this, there should be a refresh, or right click and refresh, or there it is. You will notice that your table name will come up here. See, DB College, it will come on your right hand side window. Right? So this is saying that a DB College database was created, a table was created therein, and in those tables here are the columns. I did a right click and said refresh all in this window, right? Or it could be somewhere, as I thought there could be an icon, which is not telling me what the name is. It looks like refresh, this one, the 2 arrows, but I did a right click and I did it. So the database got created. It's right on your local machine where you've set it up. You can go there and look at it, right? I can't remember, but it was somewhere on the C drive. Remember that INI file that was telling you where your data was being saved? Try to run the script again. Run it again. I get an error. It says, how can I create a database that is already created? And that's quite obvious. There is a database by that name on your local machine or on the server or wherever it is, and you're trying to create a database by the same name. Cannot happen because they are on the same server. Names have to be unique. So database names have to be unique. Inside a database, the field names have to be unique. The table names have to be unique. Right? Between different databases, you could have the same table, but one table, students can belong to database 1, another table can belong to database 2. But within a database, all table names are unique, and in a table, all field names are unique. Okay? So you should be able to see your database and your table, and when I try to run it again, and it's quite obvious. Now, what is the statement that allows you to recreate a database is the only way is drop the previous one, delete the previous one, and again create. Which again you won't do in everyday life, right? You won't, as I said, you won't every day come and say, okay, drop the old one, create a new one. You won't, like it's not, you don't kind of throw everything out and then put it back because it's the same data. Yes?
Have you opened up the schemas window?
See if there is, in view, if there is something called windows. Oh, of these arrows, do you have these rectangles on the right hand side?
Yeah.
Okay, so the leftmost one, click on the leftmost one and it will become active.
Well,
No, and then if the windows is not coming up, there should be some way of seeing. I see a view here, I see panels here. So these are the 3-1, hide, sidebar, show sidebar, and then next main tab. No, and that's it. Okay, so see if you can.
I haven't got that.
Yeah, somewhere it should say. I'm trying to see where will it say show this window. Tools, configuration. I don't know. You can try. But no, backup connection, scripting. I don't think makes sense. I don't know. It should be somewhere. Do you see it in file? No, edit. Preferences, try preferences. I only see view is the logical place it should be, but I see hide sidebar and hide output area, and that's the same 3 rectangles on the right hand side. See in edit, if you can go to preferences and say show me this window. SQL editor, modeling, fonts and colors, others. No, that's not it. Try to look for help then. I've kind of never thought about it. It's called the information. No, it's called schemas here. So somewhere I have the navigator. So the navigator window comes from here automatically. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, so right click on columns, for example, and in the bottom panel that says information, it should show up. Same with if you click on student name once or twice.
Sorry, what did you say?
No, he already has that open. He doesn't have the schemas windows open. So he can't right click on anything.
I've got navigator.
And you have navigator open? Yeah, but there has to be some way of looking at it. What is panels saying? Show secondary sidebar. Let's try, I don't know. Hide sidebar is the same thing. This isn't making sense to me, the hide output area and so on. Query cannot have it. Doesn't make sense. Database connect, manage, reverse. Yeah, the schema should, I mean, I've never kind of thought about it. Configuration, I don't know. No backup restore, no. I can look at it afterwards. We'll have to kind of maybe go to help and see.
Yeah, for some reason, there's like a little span or collapse thing in the top right corner, and that's what it is for some people.
Okay. So you have a collapse and thing here, right on the navigator?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have, what's this then? Maybe, oh yeah, there it is. Oh, yeah, okay. So that's it. Yeah, so this is a small, this arrow is your collapse and expand. And that's why it was not showing up. Okay, so where was I? Here. Right? Makes sense? Okay, now, so we have a problem. I can create a database again and it makes sense. Okay, so what do I do? I could do this. So the statement is being shown to you because you should know about it. Let's drop the database before we create it. So if there is a database. Okay, good. Say drop it and then create it. So that's fine too, but let's run it and see if it works. I run it again and it runs, right? I run it again. Let's run it again. And I'm fine, right? But now suppose I try to drop a database that does not exist. That's the drop database command. I say drop database, this, and I try to run it. Creating this one, so I will drop that named database. But what if I just say drop database 2 and I run it? And it says, how can I drop a database? That database doesn't even exist, right? So you made a typo, but you see that error is quite obvious. You will have to learn how to read errors because that's the best way to learn. So it says, I can drop that database. There is no database by that name. You made a typo and you say, oh, sorry, it wasn't college 2, it was college. Or you can do this. You can say, drop it if it exists. So that way you are safe. So if it exists, drop it. If it doesn't exist, it's okay. Don't worry about it. So now you won't get an error. You see what I mean? Now you don't have an error. So you're saying drop database if it exists. And if it doesn't exist, it will just ignore it. It won't drop it. But then again, there may be problems because you're creating it by the same name. Right? So now it says, oh, I cannot create DB college because we already have it. So be careful about your typos. So you have to drop the database you are trying to create. Right? But that's the full form of your drop database. Drop database if exists. And again, syntax, you don't have to memorize any syntax. You can always go to the manual and look at it. And it's easy to do. And even during an exam, you will be allowed to use the manual. So you're okay. You don't have to memorize anything at all. But you have to know it. I mean, you could be making typos, but you'll say, I don't even know how to use the database. Of course, then what will you look for? Okay. So that's my drop database command. Okay, let's try to run it again now.
What if I drop my table, then I'm not able to use the drop table once again, or
so is there a drop table also is what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes, there is a drop table command also. So you can drop a table if you like, but if you drop a table, then you'll have to create it again.
But I temporarily want to drop it to make something, and I have to recycle it.
Yeah, but you can put a drop command here. There is a drop table command that you can put. Or you mean you want to save your data and then create and then bring it back?
Yes.
You'll learn how to do that. We can do that. Okay, we can make duplicates, or we can put it into another table and then we can bring it back. It can be done. Okay, yeah, okay, we are talking about tables. So as there is a drop database, there is also a drop table command also, right? There is a drop table command also. It exists. So just so that you know, you can drop a table too. I mean, be careful when you drop a table, it's gone. Everything is gone. Okay. And again, as in drop database, it also says if exists. So you may need it, you may not need it, depends upon how and when, but you should know the commands. Right, let's try if everything is okay and everything works. And notice how you get this warning signal here. It says unknown table DB college DBL student. It says I can't find this table TBL student. It says I can't find it because create table is just a definition. You haven't yet put data into it or anything. Okay, so that's why it wasn't complaining before also. So I'll show you the use once I write it. So now if you refresh it, I'm thinking this should be refresh. Yeah, it is the refresh. The small two arrows usually are refresh. So there is a DB college or whatever you called it. Here are the tables in it, whatever you called it. There is a table student, and inside the table student, you will have columns. And those columns are basically, if you notice, there is information at the bottom. It's showing you the columns that you created and that or whatever. Very looks good. Next part. How do I put data into it? I mean, it's okay, but it's it's a useless table. There is nothing in it. It actually doesn't exist yet, in a sense. This is just a definition. Okay, it says this is a table I'll create. So the next statement, populate the table with data. So the command, the SQL command to put data into a table is called insert. So now what do you want to do? You want to insert data into this table, right? So in which table do you want to insert? You'll have to, of course, say you may be dealing with 10 tables. You may have 10 tables in your database. You have to say which table am I interested in, right? So insert into this table. Now what do you want to insert? Data. And now there are variations of how and when and so on. Okay, so you want to, yes.
Is there ever a time where you just say insert with like the into or anything else?
Can you write without the into? Double check, I don't know. Usually there is options in SQL where you can list things, but I think the command is called insert into. The best way is to just look at the command. If the into is in square brackets, it's optional. Okay, I think it's not optional, but double check, right? Okay, now what do you want to insert into this table? You want to insert some values, right? And what are the values you want to insert? Every row comes in round brackets in your parentheses. So all the values of one row, one line at a time, separated by commas, again, in different lines so that it's easier for you to read. When you are done, then you put a semicolon. That's the format. But we'll talk about a few things. Give me some time. Okay. So I've said insert. This is its easiest form, right? It's easiest form. We are not saying which fields to insert. We are not saying what is the sequence in which I want to insert. We are just saying insert data. So if you do not give a field list here, I haven't given any field list here. I haven't said what fields do I want to insert, right? I haven't given anything here. It's empty. I haven't said anything. So this, for your information, field list. I'm using the default field list. What does it mean? It will insert in this order how you've created it. So this order, and how many fields? 5 of them. So for every row, you will have to give 5 values in the order of the field names in the table. That's how you will have to insert. So if you don't say anything, you just say insert into table, you're going to use the default field list in sequence. in order or sequence, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes sense to you. That means every record, every parenthesis, every record will have exactly how many values? 5. The first value will go into name. The second value will go into birthplace. The third value will go into email. The fourth into job desired, and the fifth value into favorite sites. Here we are still okay because they're all varchars. But if you mess up in numeric fields, you're trying to put a numeric value in a text field is okay because it's just assumed to be text. But if you're trying to put Anju into age and age is an integer, right? So you have to be careful. If you're going to use this sequence that you're just saying insert into table name, you're kind of assuming that you will, every record will have 5 character text fields in that order. If the order is messed up, if you mess it up, your name may go into favorite sites, the birthplace may go into name. So you have to just remember it. And the easiest way to remember it is if you're kind of seeing it together, you can make it bigger if you want. Or there are other options, and we'll talk about those other options, but just so that you know that this is available. Okay, so let's start doing it. Right now, my text data goes in single quotes. Some relational databases allow you the use of single and double quotes, and I think MySQL also allows both. Right? You can check if it's still working. It's fine, right? I'll again be consistent. If you're going to use double quotes, use double quotes throughout. If you're going to use single quotes, use single quotes. But be consistent. Don't mix and match. Okay, so that's my name, right? My next is my birthplace. So you can start filling. Oh, so you can. I mean, I won't mix and match. So I'm going to say New Delhi and India, right? Notice how every field is separated by commas, but anything in a field, as long as it is in quotes, it's one field. And therefore, my favorite sites will work. I can give 5 favorite sites separated by comma or semicolon, but I'll put it in one quotes. My next field is my email. And I'm okay by sharing my email because everybody knows it.
For us, does it have to be student email or just any?
Doesn't matter. This is just data. This is just data. And it's not very secure data. Like you're not writing a bank application here. It's just an example. My fourth field is job desired. And my last field is my favorite sites. Now, again, all your favorite sites, you can have any number of them. You can have any number of them as long as you put them all together, in one single quotes. So you can have 5 of them, and it's up to you, right? So you can kind of go whatever you like.
For first example, we're allowed to use your data.
Exactly. You can put in any data you like. What I'll do is I'll try to learn a few names when I put in data. That's the advantage. CBN, whatever you like. It's up to you. And so on, like whatever you like. That completes one record, right? If one is more than enough for you, we are good, but definitely it's not enough because we won't be able to see a lot of data. So yeah, so this is the right one because I know Noha. Yangsu, is he in class? Is it okay to use your data on here so that everybody sees it? Okay, so Yang is my second student. He was born in China, Nanjing in China. So you can kind of put in a couple of records. You can copy and paste and duplicate them just so that you know this is how you do it. And then I'll show you what will work and what will not work. And then he said he gave some whatever. And then he wants to be a web designer. And he likes Facebook. That's what Yang gave me, right? Noha, okay to use yours? Okay, so Noha is the next student, and that's why I'm trying to learn names also, guys. You can put your friends, your whatever you like. So we have Noha Michael. He was born in Bangalore, India. I'll kind of just leave it. I mean, if you see the name, you always know his email. You know what I mean? Like, we all know. So I'll just go whatever. Seems like the double quotes don't seem to go color change. So I'm not sure. He wants to be a technology analyst. And he likes YouTube. So now Noha was not kind enough to give me the full URL of YouTube, right? Now, again, this will depend upon how you're taking data from your users. And you will always find that collecting data is not easy. In all forms. You are saying, give me your favorite sites, and people will just say YouTube. If you know, you could go youtube.com, you could go www. If you want to have some format, you will have to kind of put it in yourself. So data entry is not easy. It's not, right? It's quite tedious and boring. So he went with YouTube. So since we all know now, if there was somebody who was only hired to input data, and the poor guy did not know about how to complete site names, then he's lost. You know what I mean? So data has to be collected always in a. So you can, if you like, I'll kind of. So I knew these two names, Yang. I know Bradley's name too, so that's okay. Ritesh Kumar. Okay, is it okay to use the data? Okay, so that's the new name I learned today. So Ritesh. Oops. So Ritesh Kumar has come from India, Punjab. So India has states, okay, for people if you're interested. And then he has some email, and again, he's given a private email, which I'll kind of avoid. And then he wants to be a web designer too. You guys afraid of application programming? And he said google.com and facebook.com. So he kind of gave the full address, which is okay. So he went google.com. So some people will say google.ca and some will say google.com, which is okay. Whatever, they're both valid addresses. And he went with facebook.com. Notice you can inside the single quotes, it's just text. You can separate them by semicolons, you can separate them by tab, you can whatever it is. It's just not the correct design. So hopefully this will not affect us in the long run, but there it is. Right? So I've kind of put in 4. What have I missed? Why do I see a red squiggly? Oh, comma. I missed the comma after my third record. So when you'll see that syntax errors will come up. If you see something red, kind of pay it a little attention, then you will know everything is okay. So now 4 records will get inserted in my table. For a minute, just for the heck of it, I will for a minute comment out the drop table command. Okay, so let's run it. 4 records will be saved in the table. We have to see where they are, but they will be saved in the table.
Wait, which line did you comment on?
The drop table command.
So drop database if exists.
Drop table command. Drop table, right? So I mean, we've already taken care of the database, so that stays. Let's try to run it again. It's fine. It's not complaining. That's strange. It should complain that the table already exists. It is complaining. It should complain logically. Why is mine not complaining? It should. It should create that the table is already present, and it's not. Run your scripts, guys. Do you have that problem of?
I think you're dropping database if it exists.
Oh, since I dropped it, the whole thing goes, right? Yes, I didn't comment that out. So if you drop your database, it doesn't matter. The drop table command is not required at all.
Yes, it says 4 rows effective.
Right? So because do you see the sense? Not putting both is not necessary, because since I'm dropping the database, the table automatically gets dropped. Everything gets dropped. If you did not have the drop table database command and you wanted to drop a table, then, which I can do because like I'm on my local machine, I can do it, but there is a drop table command. So it's unnecessary for us because dropping database means everything is gone. Like everything, all tables of it is gone. So it's not required and therefore it runs fine. But of course, if I remove the drop database command, it will start to complain again. Okay, so we are okay, but you'll say, where do I see my table? Can I see my data? Like, show me my data. How do you prove? So now the simplest of statement, you are going to show your table. Show the rows or tuples or whatever you want to call it. Now, this is kind of very technical comment. Show the rows of the table is a very technical comment and technical for the common man, right? So you can say show the data, whatever you like, right? That makes more sense. So in its simplest form, I'm going to use a statement called select, right? So this is your next, we'll come to it in next week. But select is a statement, SQL statement, verb, whatever you would like to call it, command that selects, the English word selects, and I want to select all the rows with all the columns from my table. right? So when you want to select all the columns, you go star. You say select all my columns from my table called TBL students. Is there a control space? There it is. The help should come. So don't be lazy. Please try to give good names, because after that, when you want to type them in, help will come. Okay. So say select star from. So the star, for your information, since it is new for you, star stands for all columns. Automatically all rows are being selected. So the star stands for all columns. If you were only interested in name and email, you would say select student name, comma, email. Okay, so we could do that also. But for now, let me see if this runs. Okay, let's see. If you now run your script, save it and run it. And of course, I think when you execute it, notice you will have a window here which will show you the data. So see, by default, the names of your columns that are coming at the head are the same as the names that you gave it. By default, the sequence in which they are coming, sequence in which the columns are coming also is taken from the default. Now the rows, it's said that the rows don't have a sequence. You can't ever say that will the rows always come in the same order in which you have put it. There is no guarantee of it, but usually it is. But there's no guarantee. The columns will come in the same order in which you've given, but the rows. So there is so you can assume that the table is just a collection. They can come in different orders. They usually in MySQL, but there's no guarantee of it. Shane, you had a question? Okay, good. Right? So learn. I can show you how to take care of errors, but learn to read errors and take care of them. You will learn better. You will, because you won't forget it. Once you do something with your own hands, you don't forget. I can come and tell you, but you won't remember. So try to do that. Okay, so works well. Good. Right? It's working. Yes. Okay, what error is it saying? Okay, so it says I can't even create your database, is what it is saying. Do you have the drop database command at the head? Sorry? No, we don't have to comment it. Before the create database. No, you can comment that. Because unless you drop it, how will you create it? So when you run it again, then here as drop database if exists. If exists. Now drop table is not required because database drop means everything. Now you don't need the drop. So you can create a database with the same name. It's on your local machine. You ran the script once, it created. If you rerun the script, it's trying to create it again. It can be done. So now when I say drop it will drop the old one and again. Okay? No problem. Okay, are we good? Now let's see where problems can occur. Let's go back to your insert. Try to remove my name out of it, or any one field. Just remove one field. So we require 5 fields and I've removed my name. Okay, let's run the script again. You don't do it. I'm trying to show you stuff you needn't because you're lazy than I am. Okay, and I get an error. It says, look at the error. Column count doesn't match value count at row 1. So it's saying at row 1, that is this row 1, the column count, makes sense? Column count doesn't match the columns that you've mentioned here. So it's saying you've given me 4 fields. There are 5 fields in the table. Where is the 5th one? So it won't run. So we'll bring it back and it will run. You'll say, what if I don't want to give, so suppose somebody has not told me job desired. I just want to enter 4 fields. Or somebody hasn't told me their email. I just want to enter 4 fields. What do I do then? So there are variations. Yes, Bradley.
Were we supposed to highlight inserting 2 sides and one of the fields, or just the whole program? So when I did it, it easily erased the email, but now I've undid the damage.
You can delete whatever field, really doesn't matter. As long as the count is not 5, it will create a problem. Okay, let me now show you a variation. So do a Control C for the insert so that we don't have to retype it. And now, whatever you like, in whatever sequence you like, it's entirely up to you. You can say, show me the student name. What was it? Why isn't it helping me? It was called student name. Control space bar. No, doesn't help. Because I have, suppose I only wanted to insert the student name and the email. What am I saying now? I'm saying I'm only going to insert the student name and the email in that order. You could change it, whatever you like. So the number of fields and the sequence can be defined by the user. Whatever number of fields, whatever the sequence. If you still want to insert all the 5 fields but in a different sequence, it's up to you. You can go favorite sites, comma, email, comma, student name, whatever you like. So notice the column names are important because they are recognized by column names. So if you only want to insert some fields and in a different order, even the order in a certain order, I'll change the order so that you can see what I mean. I'll put the email first just so that you know. Like you can change the order too. So I'm going email and student name. So this is telling you that you can only insert whatever fields you like and in whatever order you like. So how many fields are required? 2. You can't give more than 2. You can't give less than 2. It says 2 fields. You can't give less than 2. Okay. So now it says email first, and it says name afterwards, and it says 4 fields, 2 fields. Right now it will work. This one will work. The only problem is Anju Chawla will go into email and Anju Chawla Georgian C will go into my name. So you make a mistake, it will just do what it is. And I'm okay here because they're of the same type, varchar. They're both varchar. So any data will work. It will create more problems if it was a numeric and you're trying to put text data into numeric. So you have to be careful. So email comes first and the name comes afterward. So remove it, your email first and your name afterwards. And this will work. Try it, right? Try it again. And remember, since my database is dropped, I'm okay. Notice how things, a last record got added, and now notice something in that record. The fields for which I did not provide a value have the reserved word null inside it. It's a reserved word. You can actually use it. You can check if a field is null. It says null, N-U-L-L. You can use it. It's a predefined type. Like it's a valid value. You can check against null, right? And these fields are null. You didn't provide a value. So why null? Because I'm using varchar. If it was a number, it would be 0. Numeric data default is 0. If it was a date, I forget. I think it puts in all 0, 0, 0, 0. So you can check the default values if you like. So I'm saying there. Now tell me something. Are we okay till here? All following me? I'll give you a break at 1:15. Okay, I will. I just want to kind of get this out of the whole thing together so that it's in your head. Do you think now let's talk about identifying a record. Okay, so I have some records in my table, and some records, all records have data, right? Now, kind of look at what we have. We don't have everything, but look at what we have. How do you identify a record? How is one record different from another? Which field or fields in this table is kind of your identification field that I can identify a student by it? What field will work as an identifying field? Student name. Though it's not a best field because 2 student names emails could be, again, yeah, you're right, emails cannot be duplicated. So I'm trying to look for a field that is unique and will identify every record in a table, right? So the first thing that comes to your mind, as Shane said, was name, because student names is kind of the identifying field. Email is not wrong. It's actually a good field because it will always be unique. But usually when you look for a student in a table, you look for the student name in the table, right? Because that's common. But again, student name is not the best choice because 2 students may have the same name. Chances are less that their first name and last name match, but there is a chance. So I could add a field student ID, and that definitely student IDs will be unique, and that's how we recognize students. But that's the field I want. So if the student name is not present in a record, that record is useless. You know what I mean? Like, whose record is that? So if you want, you can force the user to always put in a value into the name. So when a record is added to the table, it will be a requirement that the name has to be present. How do you tell the database that this is a requirement? You will go to the student name field and you will add. Can I answer somebody's question? If there is some doubt, please, instead of you asking from each other, please add the qualification or the requirement not null in front of it. Not null says you can add a record without, you cannot add a record without a name. So let's try it. Does it work? Because I have to tell you something else. So not null says, so for your own information, you can kind of put it here. This field is required. Oh, okay, where am I? This field is required. I did a return. We'll take it from here, remove it from here, go here, and put it here. So here are where line comments are more useful. When you want to put a comment at the end of a line, you know what I mean? Like with the line itself. Block comments won't work here. So therefore, line comments are available in every end. So this field is required. So now try to do this just for the heck of it. Try to take your insert statement again. This one. Duplicate it, but remove the name out of it. And just put the email. The other fields are may or may not be put, but I've said that name is required. So let's change the comment. Insert a record without name, which is required, which is a required field. Let's see if it runs. And don't worry if it runs. So now I'm going to again put data into it. This time again, I'm only giving the email and I'm inserting the value in it. Let's try to run it. And I say, and look at the error. It says, you said that the field was required. You haven't given it a default value. If you don't give me it, then if you had given me a default value, I would put that value. You haven't told me that if you don't give me name, what do I put in it? So what do? I can't insert that record. It says I cannot insert that record. Notice the error. It says insert into student table. It's telling you which line it is appearing at. It's giving you an error code 1364, which you can always go and look up on the web. But it's quite helpful. It says field student name doesn't have a default value. It would be better if it would have said student name is required, but it is saying it doesn't have a default value. Let me try to put 2 and 2 together for you. It says you didn't give it to me. You didn't tell me if it had a default value. So what do I put in it? I can't leave it empty. You've said don't leave it empty. You haven't told me what the default value is. So what do? I'm stuck here. So either you give me a name, give me a value, or give it a default value. Now, not everybody's name can have a default value. Like I cannot give it a default value, but I could if I like, though again, it's not a very good kind of. I'm saying if you don't tell me your birthplace, I'm assuming it to be Canada. I mean, this is again not the best kind of, but whereas do you think a default value will make a sense? Maybe here, you're all programmers, and if you don't give me a default value, so let me show you the default feature. This is how you use default, right? So you're saying job desired has a default value of programmer. If it is not provided, it will still put programmer into it. I didn't put not null with it because people may not tell me what their job is. Or if they say, I can combine the two, we can combine also, but I'll go one step at a time. So what will happen with this? Let's go one at a time. I can't give a default to name because it just doesn't make sense. Not everybody can have a default name. But assuming that all my students want to be a programmer, at least I can put programmer in it. Or suppose there was something that was making sense. Do you own a car? And I'll say yes. If nobody tells me, I'll just put yes, or I'll put no. So you can think of default values for some fields, but some fields won't make sense at all. But what does the default do? Let me show that to you. So since this is creating a problem right now, I'm just going to comment it out for a minute. Okay, I'm using the dashes just because it's easier. But I mean, I won't because let's try to run this. And let me show you what default does first. And then we'll put 2 and 2 together. Okay. Notice what did it do with the default option? It put programmer in the record in which I did not provide a value. That's what default does, right? Now, if you're saying a field is not null, and you're giving a default value with it, then if you don't provide it, it at least has a default value and it won't complain. Let's try it with name. Though it's not a good example, let's try it with name. So I say, if you don't give me a name, everybody's name becomes student. Not a good option at all, but I want to show you how it works. And I'm just putting it in caps because my caps lock is on, okay? The values are all coming in caps because my caps lock is on. Okay, so now I have said I've said it's not null. You cannot leave it empty. And I've said, oh, if I leave it empty, this is the default name. Okay, so let's now uncomment and try that again. Does that statement work now? Let's try. Yes, it works because it did give me an error. And what did it do? It put the default name called name. Now that's not a good idea at all. You'll say, then what? What can I do about it? Nothing. You can't put a record without a name. Right? Now, if for some reason you are not getting an error and it is allowing you to kind of put the record in old versions, sometimes you will see that there is a statement that is added at the head of the script, but now it's fine. But when MySQL had a little bugs at the beginning, sometimes you'll have to kind of set it that please see that all my not null state. So this is not a good default value at all. So you'll say, what do I do now? Basically, you can't do anything. You said it cannot be null. How can you insert a record without a name? That's why you said not null. You want the name to be present, and that's fine. You should have a problem, and there will be a problem. You'll say, oh, so that's why the error message, it says it doesn't have a default value. This is what it was trying to say. It was saying the field is not null. You did not give it a default value. What do I do? I can't insert it. And that's quite obvious. No, you shouldn't be able to insert it. And do you now understand the meaning of not null? That's what's the meaning of not null. If for some reason in older scripts you find a statement, we had to set it up to strict alt tables. I forget what the set statement was. I can look it up. We had to put it in a script because it wouldn't work otherwise. The not null wouldn't be active. You'll have to make it active. Sometimes you have to make it active. They're all set statements, and it's called strict alt tables something. If I look it up, it's called strict alt tables in MySQL. We had to do it before, I remember. Something like strict alt tables. You know what? I can go to the manual and look it up, but I'll just show you, just in case you see in some old scripts. I think it's called strict alt tables set. Okay, I'll do set statement. It was in the set. Because you may see it and say, why is that done? Why is that using the strict one? Let me see if I can get, because I can't remember the statement now. Server SQL modes. I don't think. Okay, let's see. Setting the SQL mode. Set globals. These are set statements. If you want to change your environment, you can use the set statements. And it was, I can't remember the syntax now, but it was called strict alt tables. Okay, let me search it here. I can't remember it because it's not required now, right? There it is, strict alt table. Oh. Strict SQL mode, there it is. Let's see if I can find it here. There it is, strict alt tables. So if I go to strict alt tables, I just want to see the syntax. Strict alt tables. From 5.7.4 through 5.7.7 includes the effect. Oh, so they've already kind of done it, I think. That's why it's not needed. I can't remember the syntax. Oh. I'm trying to look for the syntax for the syntax of it. You had to do something like, I can't, I'll see. Let's see. I'll try. Set, it was called strict alt tables or something like this. But I mean, there has to be something else if it can help me. I'm trying to look for that command. If it is running for everybody, it's fine. It's no big deal. But see, it's not. There is something you have to set. Double is not valid input here. What was it called? Set mode? Ah, that looks it. Yeah, I've got it. So if by chance in some old scripts you find a set statement, something that looks like line 10, it's setting the environment locally. Some MySQL is okay, but on servers it could be different. Maybe Dreamhost doesn't allow it. When the database server is kind of installed, maybe this mode was not set to strict all tables. What does strict all tables do? It makes not null effective. For us it is effective, so we don't have to do it. But if you find that I said not null, but I can still give a record without a name, why is it not following my instructions? You have to just set this mode to strict all tables, right? So keep that in mind. Just if you see some old scripts and you find this and say, what is the use of this statement? The use of this statement is saying, define my tables exactly like I have said they have to be defined. So if I said not null must be effective. But in some versions it wasn't, so there is a set name. So that means what we have now in WAMP, our database server is taking care of it. We won't have to worry about it. But if you're working on a server, remember you don't have any control on how the database server is running on a server. What you can do is you can use set statements in your own script to set the environment as you require. I've only shown you one set statement. So if you had paid attention while I was on the manual, there were many set statements. So you can set your collating sequence to something different, and you can set your character set to something different. Whatever, you can do your own local environment if you want it to be different from what it is on the server, right? Because you have no control over how it has been set on the server. So set commands are available in SQL that allow you to set up a local environment for your own script, the script that you are running. I'm okay here because I didn't need to, but I'm just showing you an example of a set statement. And if required, there are other set statements which are available. Whenever you say, oh, why is this not working? What can I do to change my environment? Look for a set and say, how do I set the collating sequence? How do I set the character set? You can do all kind of sets, okay, to build up your own local environment. That takes care of my first script. So you have been introduced to default. You have been introduced to not null. You know what not null is. I've also told you about the set statement, though we don't need it. We've talked about drop statements. There is a drop database. There is a drop table also. We don't need the drop table because our database is being dropped. Everything goes. We've learned how to create a database. We've learned how to create a table, how to insert values into it, and how to show values out of the table. Right? Any questions? Anything that's not clear? So there are more. You've seen not null and default. There could be more options that we will use as we go on, but for now this is okay. We've learned two new things here: not null and default. Right? Yes.
I learned a bit more about equal today and also out the set modes for now.
It's up to you. We don't require it, so even if you comment it out, it's still running, right? So if you need it, if you see it, you know what it is, and it's also telling you that there are ways of setting it in now. Right? So we'll take a break of 20 minutes here, come back and then do the first assignment. So you go and have your lunch, and so will I, and that by that time I'll answer any questions. I'll come back. None of these is
Okay, like right now,
Whatever.
We have, Friday, we have
Oh, what's the transcript?
What else?
All the world.
So the second command is set your local environment, right? Like something that you want to
Step by
locally
step with
store
the
on
name
yourself.
and then
Suppose for us, for us, I don't
value.
but suppose
Oh,
you're not in
shoot.
a role model. You said my
Okay,
people
so
want
we're
that,
looking at
but you were able to set the record without it. That means the tables are not set. So what did I do with my script? I added this set statement, which is now making all your tables sit, so they're not under the okay. So how my database server is running on a server, on a remote server, and they have made their own server. No, it works on the whole code, but the set statement can be, I can set more equal. There is a set for lattice equals, there is a set something else equal, set something else. Just setting different environments.
We
And
got,
making your
we can
own.
also do on the particular, like, today's line on.
No, the set statement usually work on this. For example, if you want to make you're searching for something and you want to make your search case sensitive. Otherwise, it's not case sensitive. And you talk about whether it is in small or caps, always. If you want to make it case sensitive, then there is a set command code which I forget now, but you can. Right, so that's how you change your system. Okay? Otherwise, the search command is not basic.
Block out.
So those are the things. If you want to set up your own local environment, which is different from what the server has, then you can use your set statements and you can work on your script, the one that has that contains. Now, are there individual set statements for a single statement? I don't think so. But I don't know about all sets. So, but that's what is the use of the sets. Okay? Yes. Yeah, I need to have my lunch also. Okay?
One person will have place for the sister.
I just want to say, I just want to very good man. I just said, let's set strict or case. That's the one I was saying. Yes, yes. Set character sets. So they may not say, I did something like sets. They have a sets.
Yeah, like I just got. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, but I don't know about exam. I don't have exam installed on my phone. It's not installed. They're both installed. I don't, for me, start Apache or you can start file. For me, it's not. Now, what is the edit? What is the setting? My instruction. Okay, so run it again. Close it. So stop all services first. Exit this also. Where is your exam from? And it's start the exam from. And then let's just so click on start again and does it click on stop? Yeah. Okay, so stop all services. And then close it and then and only start one. Okay? And next question. Okay, actually you don't need it. So just start that particular service. These are services running on your machine.
I'm getting SQL or PHP or whichever, but I don't know how to do something SQL.
It was on, the service was on. You just, in front of MySQL, you start that service. Go start. If you want to start all of them, it's perfectly fine. You can start all of them too. I don't know what's wrong with your exam. I have no clue because it's your software. I don't have any clue of what's wrong with your exam. I cannot tell you. It's your software and it's not working. I don't know why it's not working.
Well, basically, I figured I only needed my SQL.
Yes, so you don't have to start all other services. The COMP2003
For 26 that's all good. And I have to be very confident because this is Windows.
For my course, it does not matter whether the package is running or not. The only thing I am interested in is my SQL. That's it. For my Oh, it's still giving me an error in my strict statement. Yes, Shen. I don't have anything on my records.
Okay, it would say.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard from anybody, so we're okay, right? It's giving me a problem in set mode strict all tables, unknown system variable mode. No, or could it be set strict mode? There is something, I can't remember it because I haven't used it for a while. It's giving a syntax error. No, it's still giving a syntax. I can't remember it. I'll have to find out. I forget now. I'll remove it and. You have to run your script, right? Try to open your MySQL workbench again and see if it is running. See if it is running.
That's the only class I can
Set more.
Was it running last week? It was running last week?
Yeah, it's just working on and didn't need the exercise, and I just used what I'm creating.
Yeah, but did you run your script last week?
I don't understand what you mean by that. What do you mean by script?
The code that you're writing is called a script.
Yes, the code was fine, it did not require using the camp. I typed, began typing.
You're not typing it in. I ran this script. You had written it in here and I ran it last week. Run it, run your script. And it is giving you some error, which is okay. So your example is running. What's the problem?
Well, I don't know what you mean by the example open and my simple.
How the hell do you do that?
You have your MySQL server running and your script is running.
Oh,
There is
you
a problem
insert a new
with-
one.
There is a syntax error. with this.
Oh my God.
Yes, which we ended this with. We didn't fix it, and I found it out.
No, I fixed it. I've already fixed this default value. I've already done it.
I'm confused. I was thinking along with programming. I was even talking about.
No.
Bradley, you won't be rude to me. Please talk properly. Otherwise, leave my class. This is what we did. Make these changes and see if it runs.
So you want me to not comment out the settled script?
I've removed it. You can comment that out. We'll talk about it after the class. This is where you are having your problem. Your problem is here. You can remove the set statement for now.
So wait, I need to type the student name on the call down? Yes, kind of.
Do you mind if I take a look at your code? Thank you. It looks like for the set mode, it's SQL underscore mode. So set SQL
Oh,
underscore
SQL.
mode, and then
So there was some syntax. Thank you. I thought there was something. I couldn't remember because I haven't used it now. You're right. It's set SQL underscore mode is equal to strict out.
yeah. What time is break until again?
I think 12:40. Another 4 minutes. 41. I think we went around 21. Having a syntax error?
I think so, but
Okay.
I think I found it.
She said we commented on the set strict names aspect too, so basically it might be related to this. It basically got a message.
Fine.
What if the user 6 columns for the
Error. It will come up with it. Try inserting it, it will come up. You can change its definition out of the view anyway, not less, not.
and there is no way to ignore what kind of error to provide.
The table will not get created, the record will not be added. So the record doesn't get added, so what do we use? You'll become comfortable in a written mode a couple of more weeks. Yeah, but no, it has to match.
Alright. Not what you wanted. The one that I gave on to me.
Show me your syntax error. Show me the syntax error. Okay, it's called set SQL mode. The statement is wrong. Set SQL underscore mode. That's it. That's what we just figured out. I'll tell that after the break, okay? I had that error too.
Yes, and the logo. You have that seems to be working fine. Yeah. Yeah, so for this, I were to go move.
Yeah.
Just it's usually specialized people like.
Yeah.
And if I were to run this program, so I do not need the sample because when Tom and I will work at it, this person might.
Lunch for you guys?
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, like I already know.
Okay. You're a CSTN student too?
Right, so.
No, yeah, because of the optional class for CSTM, because I was playing most recently, so Ian told me to yeah. And like I'm thinking, I've been doing hands-on, for the last 4 months anyway, so I'm just gonna take a look at it.
Okay, so it looks like I solved the problem. Aside from fixing, I added the default value to name. Classmate and I figured out that the local server is running, so I don't need the SAM control panel. Because the SAM is
SAM control panel is only telling you what is running. So you are still, it's telling you what's running on your machine. What do you mean by I don't need it? You're already running it.
Well, yeah, my partner says as long as if I'm using the local host server and it's running, then it should be good. Ergo, no SAM control panel. SAM control is for other things or external websites. I mean, servers. Sorry, I'm just trying not to tongue slip or whatever, but I'll try to finish my evening and I'll definitely be here for the in-class assignment. Otherwise, why would I come? Thank you, ma'am.
I don't know, like I think, I have applications with everything online. But they're still. It's better, man. I mean, like you have something spacing in the edge because after schedule A is like every single class every day is like no seats everywhere, so like nobody can see it. I think B is up there. Nice. Every day. You drive? Yeah, I have to. Let's see. I mean, 2 days, like weekends. That's weird. Well, I guess not. Yeah, like I'm.
Yeah, mostly every
Yeah, no, like I'm off Tuesday, so I'm in Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I get a good,
Everybody back? Sorry, had to take 3 minutes over. Let's clarify a few things here. We do not need the set command for our script, but the set command looks like this. If you want to put it in your code, this is how it looks like. So it's SQL mode, not only mode. SQL dash mode or underscore mode? Okay, let's see. Let's try to see if it runs, at least in this one. Okay. Okay, so that's the set statement. Sorry, it was not mode, it was SQL underscore mode. So if you want to put a comment for yourself, it would be setting environment. That's what you're doing. You're setting your environment, right? That's what you're doing with these set statements. And there are many of them. As you and when you require them, we'll use them. So we don't need it. We don't need it for our script. We are okay. But this is just for your information that there are set environments, and the use of these set statements, and the use of these statements is to set your environment, right? So there is not one, there are many of them. Okay, that's one. If you want to keep it, you can. If you want to comment it out, you can. It is working both ways for us. 2, we talked about not null, and we said giving it a default value doesn't make sense. So the last insert that you did will not work because you're only giving the email. Insert a record without a name, which is a required field, and this will not work. It won't, because it's a not null field. So try it now, and you will have an error. Oh, sorry. So you see, it says field student name does not have a default value. So I showed you after putting a default value that it started to work. But I can do that. I cannot give a default value. I shouldn't be giving a default value to a student name. A student name cannot have a default value. So it will work if I give it a default value, and the error will go away. But it's not logical to give a default value. So I can do it. You can't. The script will give you an error. What you're writing here, the program you're writing here is called a script in MySQL. In SQL. SQL are called scripts. They're not called SQL programs. They're called SQL scripts. Okay. Now, so this will not work. You cannot do it. And you don't need the strict all table. We don't even need this set command. It will not work. Let's see. So what can I do? I'll have to comment it out. There's nothing I can do about it. This will not work. You will have to comment it out because it doesn't work. You will have to comment it out. Okay. Now if I run my script, I'm okay. I should be okay. And that record, of course, I've commented it out. Any fields that you don't provide a value become null. Any field that has a default value becomes the default value if you do not give it a value. That's the use of a default. A not null field has to be provided, has to be given. That's a rule. It has to be given. If for whatever reason we were able to insert this, then I would say, oh, something is wrong. And I would have to put that set statement to see if my environment is not right. But it is right, like it's running without it too. So you should get an error. You should get an error if you try to insert a record that does not have name in it. Yes.
So the script that you were running before you commented that part out, did that include having not null default name in the same row as the name?
This is what I have.
Well, before the break, we were working.
Yeah, and I've repeated it again that putting a default for a name doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, so I need to get.
Yes, Shane.
And then comment out.
And then comment out whatever I've commented out.
Yeah, so mine's 52 to 54 for me. Underneath hashtag not work.
I don't know your line numbers. This is my table description. Everybody matches with this table description. Double check, please. These are my insert statements that are working. These are my first 4 set of statements that are working. This is my next set of insert statement that is working. The last statement will not work, and I've put it there so that you can remember that it will not work. And I have commented it out. Any more questions regarding the script? Shane?